walk you through the task of compressing your WordPress site so that it will load much faster in your visitor's browser. Now, adding code to your website server can be scary, but my goal with this video is to help you increase the load speed of your WordPress site and remove all that scariness along the way. Now, what we're going to do is use something called GZip compression. Now, if you have ever downloaded and unzipped a zip file or right-clicked on a file and zipped it up, well, then you're kind of familiar with this GZip process because it's pretty much the same thing, only the zipping and unzipping is done automatically and your site is served up in your visitor's browser at around 50 to 70% of a smaller size. So first off, I want to show you a test on my website before the compression. Then we're going to do the compression. Then we're going to retest to see the almost instant speed increase. And by the way, there are several ways that I'm going to be showing you how you can actually compress your sites. So with that said, off to the test. This is the site here that we're going to be testing and compressing and then retesting. I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL into my clipboard. This is the site that I'm going to use to test the compression. Now, there's quite a few of these online compression test sites that you can check with, but this is just one of them that I'm going to be using in this video. So right here, and by the way, whenever you get here, what'smyip.org, come on down here, click on HTTP compression. Right here, enter the URL to test. Click on test. Gives you a nice little sad sound. Nope, sorry. And of course, this big red stop sign looking thing. That tells you that it is not compressed. But it tells you right here, if it were compressed, the potential savings and what it is and what it could be. Now then, let's go ahead and clear this out. Refresh. And by the way, this right here tells you if the browser that you're using, and currently I'm in the latest Chrome browser, is good for compressing content. And this is usually the case in most all current browsers. Older Firefox or that browser called Netscape, some of you might be aware of, some of those did not process compressed content. So there were issues then, but most of the browsers nowadays, that's not an issue at all. But this is good to know that if you get the green check mark, that your browser is good. So the first way is the easiest, and that's going to your cPanel control panel, coming on down here to optimize website. And usually, in mine anyway, usually you're going to find that in the software services panel close to the bottom. So if your cPanel control panel has this, then this is the best way to go, the easiest way to go. Click on that, compress all content, click on update settings, go back. Now let's come on back here and run that test again. Click on test. Ta-da, and we're good. Okay, so let's try another way. Refresh. Come on back here and let's disable this again. Because what if you do not have cPanel, or what if you do have cPanel but you don't have the optimized website option on your cPanel? Then you want to hunt down your htaccess. Actually, it's called the .htaccess file. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and go to the file manager. You can do the same thing through your FTP client. Now let's go ahead and right click and go to edit or code edit, either way. Actually, let's go to code edit because that puts the numbers on the lines here. And this pops up here because this is a WordPress site and I've used the permalinks feature. Let's go ahead and put my cursor right there. Let's take a look at some of the code options that we have to work with here. Now, a quick history. There are two different types of GZip for your Apache server. And this is something that's beyond your control. Usually this is only going to be done through your hosting account. So what I would suggest first and foremost is go ahead and contact your hosting account, whether it's HostGator, Liquid Web, whoever, and ask them if they have GZip enabled on the server, and if they do, which one. Is it mod_GZip or is it mod_deflate? And of course, if they don't have it enabled, either one, then go ahead and ask them to enable it and to let you know which one and what is the code they suggest you use in your .htaccess file. Let's go ahead and try this one here because I believe that on this particular hosting account, it is mod_deflate. And I've got these two codes here. Both of these will work for the mod_deflate, and then down here, I've got a code right here that will work for the mod_GZip. And you can kind of tell that this one is mod_GZip, and this one here has got the deflate in there all over the place, and this one here is mod_deflate. So these two will work if it's mod deflate. So let's go ahead and just copy all this in here and just paste that at the end. Okay, that didn't work out right. Let's undo that. Control Z will undo that. And let's go ahead and format, take that off. And try this again. There we go. And let's save. I'm going to go ahead and leave this open because I'm going to change this here in a second. So let's come on back here and run that test again. Okay, so that one works. So that's two ways that you can add the GZip compression to your site. One way you have control over, and that's using the cPanel control panel and the optimize website option. Another way is you really don't have a whole lot of control over it if it's not enabled, but you need to contact your web hosting service to make sure that it is enabled and to find out which option they chose, mod deflate or mod GZip. Now another way, and this is only good if you've got a PHP-based site, that being WordPress in this case, or that you want to play around and actually try to just change your .html site into a .php site. That will usually work, but sometimes it can cause issues, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Go ahead and refresh our test page, and let's go ahead and come back here, close this out, because we're pretty well done here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that, though. Close. Whoops, I didn't save it. Darn it. Let's try this again. Delete that. Save changes. So right now we are un-gzipped. Now we can close. And just to double check that we're no longer gzipped, run the test. No longer gzipped. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. Let's just refresh. And we're done here. Get out of here. And we're pretty well done here as well, so I'm going to go ahead and log out of here. So what I want to do at this point is log into the dashboard area of our WordPress site, and I've already done that. And if you're not familiar with how to do that, there's plenty of tutorials online. Basically, you just put in your URL /wp-admin. You'll probably be prompted to enter your username and password, and then just log in, and you'll end up somewhere like this. At this point, you want to come into the Appearance panel, go down to Editor, and you want to come over here to the far right and click on Header, so that will bring you to the header.php file. Because this code, this bottom one here, let me pull this up, this little code right here, you want to put this at the very top of every one of your PHP pages. And if it's a WordPress site, you can tackle that by putting it at the very top of your header.php file. That in turn will show up on every single one of your pages. Let's go ahead and copy this. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, so now then you will, whenever you first open up the editor here, chances are you're going to be in the style.css. So you want to click on the header.php file here. That will open up the header.php page. And when I say at the very top, I mean at the very top. Put your cursor right there, hit your enter key a couple of times, well, just once anyway, and right above the very top code is where you paste that one little bitty line of code. Come on down here, click on Update File. Now really, you can't get much simpler than that. You don't have to go into the htaccess file. All you got to do is log into the dashboard area of your WordPress site, enter that one little code at the very top of the header.php file, save it, come on back to our test page, click on Test. Boom. Simple Simon. Now you have zero excuse on compressing your website content, and you can see right here the amount of savings that you're getting. Not only is this going to load faster in your visitor's browser, which is going to make them happy, but it's also going to save you bandwidth in the process. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. That's going to bring us to the end of this video on using GZip compression for your WordPress site. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. This video will show you how to improve the performance of your website by adding Expires headers to your htaccess file. Well, I say htaccess, I actually mean .htaccess to be technical. Now, what the heck is an Expires headers? Well, when set up properly, Expires headers tells your browser whether an item like an image or a CSS file or an audio or video file can be stored in the browser for future access, or if the browser has to go all the way back to the server or the source to get that item. For example, whenever you set up an expires header for one of these items, like the CSS file, then when the visitor returns to the site, because they're not going to experience the benefit of this the first time they visit your site, only the second visit on. But whenever they do return to the site, that particular CSS file, along with all the other items that have the expires header set for, will load a ton faster because they are already stored in the visitor's browser, and the visitor's browser does not have to go all the way back to the server to get those items. So not only does your visitor experience a much faster load time on your site, but you're saving a ton in bandwidth as well. Now, for this speed tip to work, you do need to be on an Apache server, which most are these days, so that's not that big of a deal. Also, if after adding your expires headers code snippet, the tests are not showing the expires headers feature being active, then contact your host and ask if they have the expires header module activated, and while you got them on the line or chat or whatever, ask them what code snippet do they suggest that you use. Also, if you're running an e-commerce site or a membership site, you might want to contact the plugin or software creator of your e-commerce program and ask them if there are known issues with their software and expires headers. And if so, what do you need to do to avoid those problems while enjoying the benefits of the speed increase? Now first, let's go ahead and run a test to see where we are in regards to the browser caching, also known as expires headers. Now, I'm going to use GT metrics because this guy uses two tests, that being the page speed from Google and YSlow from the developers over at Yahoo. So let's first off go ahead and copy my URL into my clipboard. Come on back here to gtmetrics.com, paste it right in here, then click on Go. And depending upon the size of your site, would depend on how long this is going to take. Mine's just a dummy site with not a lot of content on the front page, so it's not going to take long to give it a test. And we test pretty crappy. So we got a 68 with page speed and a 76 with YSlow. Now what we're going to be adding will not necessarily increase these scores, but it will increase an item that affects these scores. That is, with page speed, leverage browser caching pretty poorly with a 25. And with YSlow, we're looking for add expires headers. They're the same thing, tomato, tomato, just with YSlow they call it expires headers. With page speed, they call it browser caching. But here, we scored a big fat 0. So let's go ahead and up these numbers. Now, first off, we want to get the code that we want to add to our .htaccess file, and that can be had at a site called HTML5 Boilerplate. And whenever we get to HTML5boilerplate.com, left-click on Source Code, come on over here and left-click on .htaccess. This just has a whole bunch of different code snippets for your .htaccess file, one of which is the one for expires headers. So we can just scroll all the way down here, and I'm looking for something inside of this title area that says expires headers. Now you can do a search like Control F and just type in your search box expires headers, and it will be much faster than what I'm doing here. But I believe we're right here. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Everything between this box here and this box here, I want to copy into my clipboard. So from the opening if module to the closing if module contains several different code snippets for your .htaccess file that regulates particular items or particular elements within your WordPress site. Now then, if you decide not to have some of these items, like maybe you don't want to have this one here, or maybe you don't want to have these here, you do want to have this one here, expires active on, because that's going to turn things on for you. Let's go ahead and right click and copy this. Now once you've got this copied, you want to head on over to your cPanel control panel. I've already logged in here, and then go to your file manager, just left click on that, and you want to look for the .htaccess file in the root directory of your WordPress install. Select it, and then right click, and then left click on code edit, or select it and come on up here and left click on code editor. Either way, you'll end up at the same spot. And the big difference between code editor and editor is that with code editor you got these numbers over here. And paste that code in here. And there we are. Now then again, you want to make sure that this is included. You might decide not to have this guy in there. Totally up to you. I would say leave it in there, and if it doesn't cause problems, then you're good to go. Now, to further explain this, if we come on down here under media, let's say under images that you've got a cat image on your WordPress site, and for some odd reason, you all of a sudden do not like cats. You want to change that image to a dog. Now then, if you have this set for, let's say, 1 year, then your visitor, upon the first visit to your site, will get that cat image in their browser. Boom, it's stored there for the next year. And 2 months down the line, you've changed that image to a dog. Now then, if you do not change the name of that image, then every time that visitor comes back to your site, they're not going to see the beauty of the dog. They're only going to see that cat image until this guy expires, or until they clear their browser cache, which they can do by holding the control key down and hitting their F5 key. So if you do add images or any content, make sure that you're doing so with a new name. Make sure that that content has a different name than an original or an existing element. Otherwise, your visitor, whenever they visit your site, will only get the item in the cache. And one thing on this that I do not like is this guy right here, the favicon. The favicon, by the way, is this little image right up here. That's the favicon. That, for me anyway, never changes. If I'm going to put one up, it's going to stay there for as long as I have that particular domain. So having this at 1 week is silly to me. That should be forever, but I don't think there is a forever, so I'm going to go ahead and go with a year. So any changes you make here, come on up here, click on Save Changes. We're done here. We're going to close this guy out. We're done here. We're going to close this out. And let's come on back here. And remember, for the Y slow, we've got a fat 0. And for the page speed, we had 25. Let's go ahead and rerun this test. Now our numbers here under page speed did not improve a whole lot. They actually didn't improve at all. They did over here under Y slow. So you can see with Y slow, they do have a lot more emphasis on the benefits of adding expires headers. As a matter of fact, if we come on down here, now we're under page speed, and where are we at here? Leverage browser caching right here. We got 100. So from 25 to 100, major improvement there. Under Y slow, add expires header from, what was it, 0 to 89, another major improvement. Now that's doing things manually. There's another way, and that is by adding a plugin called optimise or optimise, or however you pronounce that. This is a plugin that pretty much does the same exact thing. I myself would rather have a limited number of plugins on my WordPress site, because the more plugins that you have, the more load you have on resources, and in some cases, what little speed improvements you have from the plugin can be eaten up by the number of resources that's being used on your server. So this is totally up to you, however you want to go. Myself, I'd much rather hard code if possible, and by doing what I just showed you, you're not adding any additional plugins, and it works just fine. But if you don't want to get your hands dirty by going into your .htaccess file, and that's the case with a lot of folks, they just are just terrified of getting into the code thing. If that's the case, here's a plugin that will help you out immensely. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video on adding expires headers to leverage browser caching. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. This video is going to walk you through the basic setup of the W3 Total Cache plugin. Now I say basic setup because there's a bunch of various settings you can tweak in order to get an even faster and more efficient loading WordPress site. But even with just the basics that we're going to be covering, there's a huge speed increase of your site's load time. Let me go ahead and show you first off by running a test of our site. We come over here to our site, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy the URL into my clipboard. Come on over here to gtmetrics.com. And this site does a test of two different programs. One program from Google called PageSpeed, another program from the developers at Yahoo called Why Slow. Let's go ahead and paste our URL in here, click on Go, and depending upon the size of your site, the amount of plugins and all that kind of stuff would depend on how long this is going to take. But this being a dummy site, it's not going to take long at all. There we are. Not very impressive numbers, but that's about to change. Now, we're going to go ahead and install, activate, and configure just the basics of our W3 Total Cache plugin. Come back here and click on the retest page link, and hopefully these numbers will change. Spoiler alert, it will. So let's come on back over here to our dashboard area, go to Plugins, go to Add New, and by the way, before you do any major changes like adding a plugin that you're not familiar with or even deleting a plugin you're not familiar with, you should always be on the safe side and do a full site backup. That being a backup of your files, images, the whole 9 yards, and your database. So let's go ahead and pretend for a second that we've already done that. Now we go ahead and type in here, make sure we're in the search section, type in here W3 Total Cache, click on Search Plugins, and it'll probably be the very first one on the list. Right here we are. You want to see more about it, you can click on Details. And by the way, if through the process of your installation and configuring you run into roadblocks, right here on the WordPress.org site under Plugins, W3 Total Cache, you can come on down here and there's tons of information under the FAQ, other notes, change log, stats, and right here under Support, you might even find that somebody else has the same question that you have. So just come on in here, spend some time, check these out if you find the need to. Hopefully this video will cover all your questions. But let's go ahead and install. Click on OK. And once it's installed, we want to activate. And once it's activated, you might even get an error message up here. Just go ahead and go through the process of answering that question or removing that error message. But you're going to see down here a new link in your sidebar called Performance. Now over here, there's a few items we're not going to mess with, and that is the user agent groups, referrer groups. They basically deal with configuring your mobile sites. CDN, that's Content Delivery Network, monitoring extensions. These are just beyond the scope of the basics that this video is going to cover. But here you have the FAQ, the support, basically the same stuff that I just showed you over here on the WordPress.org site is right here on your site right now. Oh yeah, and if we go to FAQ, come up here to Help, you'll find even more information. So what we're going to do first off is take a peek at the general settings page just so that you know you're not going to mess with any of this stuff right now. This first one here allows you to enable the preview mode so you can kind of kick the tires over your settings before you actually go live. And that way if you find that something's not working or something's broken, then you can go back and tweak the installation or tweak the configuration until it is working through the preview mode. Then you can deploy it and then disable the preview mode, boom, you're live. But at this point, we're going to leave all this stuff alone. We're going to go into each one of these pages configuration section, which is over here on the left sidebar for page cache, for minify, and for the database cache, object cache, and browser cache. We're going to go into the sections over here to configure each one of these sections. Then we'll come back here and click on the enable button. So page cache first. Most all of these I'm going to check, except for this guy, the cache 404. Those two I'm not going to check. And if you have a members plugin like S2 member or something else, and you've got other levels or roles installed on this particular site, they're going to be defined out here as well. And if you do not want to cache pages for any of those roles, then you check that box and check the appropriate boxes of those you don't want to cache. This cache preload comes in pretty handy if you have a sitemap, which I do not, but you should. But this is a dummy test site, so I don't have a sitemap installed. But this allows your visitors' first time visit to your site to be a little bit quicker if you have these items checked and the sitemap URL installed here. Purge policy, the defaults are fine, advanced is fine, and save all settings. Any changes you make sure that you click on Save All Settings. So that's the page cache. Let's go to Minify. And if I'm going a little bit fast here, well, just pause the video, rewind, just absorb it as much as you can, because I can, in fact, spend 30 minutes going over all these details, but I'm trying not to. So rewrite URL structure. Leave that checked. HTML, check the top line. JS Minify, make sure that's checked. Make sure CSS Minify is checked. The advanced section is fine by default. Click on Save All Settings. Database and object cache, there's really nothing here, but I just want to show you that you can go in here and configure this further if you'd like. If you do make any changes, click on Save All Settings. Likewise with object cache, there's even less to change, but if you do make any changes, Save All Settings. Browser cache, the last one we're going to work with, I go in here and check all these boxes except the one for 404, this one here. So I check all those boxes, and then the rest of these are checked by default. Just to make sure they are all checked, click on Save All Settings. Now that we've got all those items configured, we now come back to the General Settings page and enable them. Enable. Disk Enhanced is fine unless you find there's an issue. Then you come in here and you can go with Basic. If you have a dedicated or virtual server or multiple servers, then you might find one of these being a better choice. But on most cases, we're dealing with shared servers. Disk Enhanced is going to work best for you. Minify, make sure that's checked, and Auto is checked unless, of course, there's an issue. Then you can come back in here and specify which items should be minified by going to Manual. Database cache enabled, object cache enabled, browser cache is enabled by default. Now the CDN goes beyond the basics of this video, but this will definitely make your site load that much faster. So if you have the opportunity to work with the CDN, be it Max CDN, which is one of the better ones in my opinion, or even something like your self-hosted FTP, use it. If so, then check enabled. Varnish, I've never messed with that. And Cloudflare is a pretty cool tool as well. They've got a free option, works great in security and making your site that much faster. But this goes beyond the basic section of this video. But if you did have Cloudflare set up, click on Enable. And Relic, never mess with that, but you have the option there. And if you want the page speed widget on your dashboard, grab the API key, slap it in there. I don't, so I'm not. Debug, you've got that option here. And if you wanted to save these settings, once you find that everything's working properly, and you want to add these same exact settings to other sites, you can do that here by downloading them. And then on your other sites, just install the W3 Total Cache plugin, upload the file, you're good to go. And if you want to clear everything out, go from scratch, just click on this button right here, and it won't uninstall W3 Total Cache, but it will bring it back to as if you just installed it. Click on Save All Settings. Okay, I think that's dealing with our permalinks. I thought I had that taken care of, but let's come on over to Settings here. Go to Permalinks. I thought I had that, but let's go ahead. Make sure we got custom structure in there. Click on Save Changes. Let's go back into our Performance, General Settings, and see if that red notice is gone. Okay, we're good. Click on Empty Page Cache. And again, if you wanted to kick the tires first, and you can click on Enable. That enables the preview mode. Then once you've checked everything out, you can click on Deploy. As it says up here, it ain't going to work until you disable the preview mode. Now then, let's go retest. How's that for an improvement? And that is how easy it is to install, activate, and configure the basics of the W3 Total Cache plugin. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. The W3 Total Cache plugin is a powerful tool to help speed up the load time of your WordPress site. But if you decide later on to uninstall the plugin, you might find it a bit tricky to get all the bits and pieces of the plugin removed. This video will walk you through the steps of totally uninstalling the W3 Total Cache plugin. Now to do this, you're going to need to edit the wp-config.php file in your WordPress root directory. So you're going to need either access to your cPanel Control Panel's file manager or an FTP client so that you can either edit the live files or download the files, edit them, then upload them and overwrite the old files. Now, I'm going to be using the file manager from my cPanel control panel, mainly because it's just easier to demonstrate in this video. So if we were to head over to the plugins section of our WordPress site, normally to uninstall a plugin, you simply locate the plugin, deactivate it, then once it's deactivated, you simply delete it. But you can't do that with this guy. It's a little trickier than that. So that's what you do not want to do. You do not want to just come in here, deactivate, delete. Won't work. You go into your control panel's file manager, and before you do anything with the wp-config.php file, you first want to do a full backup. Now this is just hopefully common sense at this point, that you do a full backup of your entire site files and your database before you either remove a plugin that you're not sure about how to do it or install a plugin that you're not sure about what's going to happen. That way, if something bad does happen, you got the backup of a working site that you can always fall back on. So let's pretend for a second that we've already done our full backup of the site files and our database. And just to be on the safe side, we're going to go ahead and do a separate backup of just the htaccess file. So I select that, go to download, then navigate to the location on your computer where you want to download that htaccess file to. Now you're probably going to be deleting it here in just a second anyway, but at least ways you'll know where it's at in case you need it. And then save. Now that we've got it backed up, let's delete this guy. So we're going to create a fresh one here in just a second. Now we want to go ahead and edit our wp-config file. So you select that and either right click and then select code edit, or just with it selected, come up here and select code edit. Now code editor and edit is the same thing, only the code editor, you got numbers on the lines where edit's not, so I just prefer the numbers. Anyway, come over here, click on edit, and right up here at the top is the code for the W3 Total Cache plugin. We just want to delete from that slash all the way over to here. And once that's deleted, click on Save Changes, close out. So that's step one. We're done here. Now we're done with the wp-config.php file. Now we want to go into the wp-content directory. Just double click on that. Now we want to go into the plugins directory, but we'll come back here in a second and delete this guy, this guy, this guy, and that guy. So open up plugins, select the W3 Total Cache directory, and delete it. Now when we come back to the wp-content directory, go up one level, and we select this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and that guy. So we've got 3 files and 2 folders. Delete those. And I think we're pretty well done inside of our file manager. Now we want to go in and rebuild our .htaccess file from scratch. So we come on back here to the dashboard area of our WordPress site. Come on into settings, go to permalinks, and this is what we want here. So we want to select that, click on Save Changes, and even though whenever we got here, the post name was already selected, what that does is that creates your .htaccess file. But since we just deleted it, we need to recreate it. So just make sure that's selected and that box is filled in there with post name or whatever you choose. Mine is going to be post name. And then click on Save Changes. And if we come on back here to our file manager, you'll see that the .htaccess file has been recreated, and that is how we totally uninstall every little bit of the W3 Total Cache plugin. Just to make doubly sure that our site still works and nothing's broken, come on back here and refresh, and we are good to go. That's going to bring us to the end of this video on uninstalling your W3 Total Cache plugin. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.